This week's Nifty Gifties on F5 Live Refreshing Technology is proudly powered by the Microsoft Store. Whether you're looking for a new laptop, tablet, Xbox, games, or a whole lot more, you can get them at the Microsoft Store. Remember, current students, faculty, parents, and active military can save up to 10% off almost everything. To browse the products and learn more about the discounts, you can go to f5live.tv/Microsoft. Now, over the last couple of years, there has been a lot of talk about technology coming out of China. Is it possible that they are using it to spy on us, whether it be hardware or software? Famously, the government first banned Huawei devices from being used in the government, and then banning the company seemingly outright. Then we saw what was happening with TikTok. Is it going to be banned? It's going to be banned unless it's sold. We've found a buyer. Never mind. And everything went back to normal. But that going back to normal did not change the tensions between China and the West, particularly around TikTok. And this week, some legislation has been pushed forward here in the United States, as well as in Canada. In Canada, they have banned the use of TikTok on government devices. Now, I continue to have to ask the question, why would it have been on government devices to begin with? But that's a whole different conversation, I suppose. Canada has decided no government devices, no government officials. That's it. Which we have done several years ago. However, we also went so far as to say that even personal devices for deployed military could also not have, because of tracking and things like that. Just like Fitbits had to have their location services turned off. That, obviously, very high-level national security type stuff. Don't tell China where your soldiers are. Got it. But we've got new legislation pushing forward that it's called the Deterring America's Technology Adversaries Act, the DATA Act. Somebody in the House is real good at acronyms, so they think. The House Foreign Affairs Committee has reviewed this, and basically it would outlaw TikTok in the United States, somewhere that we were in this conversation about 3 years ago. Looks like we're back to that same point. Now, obviously, since the point 3 years ago where we were having this conversation the first time, we have learned a lot more about the platform, particularly during the sale process. The way the software works in China is very different from how it works in the West. In China, it's almost exclusively an educational platform, and none of the stuff that becomes popular in the West is even permitted on the platform, obviously for a number of reasons, the CCP and things like that. But it's interesting that we're back at this point, Abram, that we're back having a conversation about whether or not software written by Chinese companies should be allowed in the U.S.
I mean, this feels like there's I don't know how much of this is Chinophobia and how much of it is genuine concern for national security of the United States or of Canada. Like, obviously, there's a lot of tensions right now between the United States and its allies and the People's Republic of China. And we've seen some incidents like with the spy balloon, although I'm a little skeptical about what the point of sending a free-floating balloon to spy on people would be, since, I mean, it just floats around. I mean, they have satellites and stuff to do a better job.
I actually heard a
Uh,
mil- uh, uh, army general explain the reason. We use them too, apparently. It has a lot to do with resolution of data, uh, sensors, and things like that you can't get from space. We apparently use them too. All over Europe and China, we've got these things flying as well. So apparently it's standard operating procedure.
so you're saying the 99 left balloons were all spy balloons?
They could be. This one was not because this one was silver, I think. But yeah,
Ah, so the
although I
anyway,
suppose if they were coming from the CCP, they would be red balloons, whether they were silver or not.
yes, yeah, whether they were actually red or not, right? Yeah, there you go. um, so anyway, I think there's a lot of there's a lot of tension. I don't know that, like, why can't um, the United States or Google and Apple just demand to, like, examine the code to make sure? I mean, or is it not that it's examining the code is going to do anything, because they are collecting data, and the question is, what are they doing with the data?
Yes, that's really what it comes down to. And we're going to talk about a couple of other companies here in a minute that prove that it's happening, which is an important point. But the fear is that ByteDance, the parent company of TikTok, is either directly related to or a shell for the CCP, and that they are working specifically to either or both, right? To collect data, to disseminate insanity, or a combination of the two. So the collect data, share it with the CCP, is far from a conspiracy theory. Huawei was already banned for this, and now there were 40 companies added to the blacklist this week. 26 of them being Chinese, two in particular, Lungson and Inspur, both of which were importing something from the United States and handing it over directly to the CCP military. So, the fear is, and it is the House Foreign Affairs Committee that this is coming through. So it's possible that the fear is that this is, in one way or another, some sort of military or governmental operation. Which was exactly what the conversation was 3 years ago. It's what the conversation was even before TikTok got its name, back when it was Musically. There was concerns back then. There's also the issue that they're openly violating COPA, and there's not really anything we can do, because what are we going to do? Drop a bomb on China or on their headquarters, right? It's difficult.
Well, there is
there's
something.
I'm sorry.
There is something absolutely you could do. You could ban. You could ban it. I mean, if something is openly violent, if an app. I mean, primarily it's an app.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you can go to the website, but I'm not even sure if you can upload stuff through the website. So, primarily it's an app.
Yeah.
So, as we have spoken about numerous times, there's not a lot of side loading going on.
Right.
You can't side load at all on Apple right now, and on Android, it's not a common and particularly easy thing to do.
Yeah.
So there's really only 2 points of entry over here: Apple and Google. if Apple and Google know that they have an app, forget whose it is, an app that is violating laws, I think that probably goes against their terms, and they are probably obligated to remove it. So in that respect, maybe they should have already removed it, because if it's violating COPA, then like I think they kind of have a responsibility
I,
here.
I agree. And yet, here we stand. The Federal Trade Commission? I think it was the FTC. Sued. Because, the FTC doesn't have, doesn't matter. They sued because ByteDance has been openly violating COPA for basically its entirety.
How have they been
ByteDance,
violating COPA? Is
uh,
specifically allowing kids younger than 13 on the platform.
and not changing the data collection behavior. Let me see if I can find the old article. Uh, uh, yeah, this was from 2019. Copa. Some companies, however, go out of their way to try and attract children. One of the biggest offenders is TikTok. Uh, uh, Musically, for example, required users to enter their real names, email addresses, phone numbers, and profile pictures. Um, the platform has made all of this information public by default, still exposes photos, even if it's made private, as well as allowing direct messages. The company even turned a blind eye after thousands of parental complaints, plus the fact that there was no infrastructure for parental consent. It was the Federal Trade Commission, and it was a 5-0 in favor of the fine. So, oh, actually,
Yeah, well,
4 years ago this week.
so if they're continuing, if they are continuing to do it, then I mean, I don't know what the process is with the government, but at a certain point, there certainly would be some response. Like, yes, you
Yeah,
make a good point, which is it's very difficult to sue an entity that doesn't have a business presence in your country. It's hard
right.
to internationally sue, particularly a company that is, in a nation that we are not on. I mean, we still have a lot of trade with China, but I
Just
don't think it's not
no
been easy.
extradition treaties and things like that, which we do not have with
But
China, I don't believe.
doesn't TikTok have a doesn't TikTok, I mean, they don't have a sales arm here or anything like that to sell ads or anything like that. They don't have an office.
I have no idea.
I mean, the point
I mean,
is
there
there's
had to have been a U.S. entity for them to have sued in 2019, right? Or for them to have
right.
fined.
So right, yeah. So I'm sure that if they are doing this badly enough, you know, they could be removed from the App Store for that reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
For violating COPA. Also, is not clear to me, and something, by the way, that could have been a great topic, and I hope we'll take up again in the future, is what's going on with Section 230. Although I think we did talk about the pending Supreme Court case at one point, right? And they had the
I think so.
arguments the other day about Section 230, and I don't think Section 230 protects app stores, right? So
They
could it
have full editorial control, so no, it couldn't possibly.
right? So therefore, and that might be why the app stores are getting more and more and more annoying to get your app into, as I can attest. Um, but the so could somebody, like, if your COPA is violated, you can sue. I think, right? There's probably a a class action suit there. And
Probably. I think
Google, if
if I
Google,
remember correctly, there was a parental group after the FTC fine. I think there was a parental group. I already closed it again. That was putting together a class action.
and so could they not sue the app stores too?
Probably
Could they not sue
for
Google
facilitating
and
it.
Apple for this? Right? I mean,
Yeah,
it's they don't get safe harbor for that.
yeah. It's an
So
interesting point.
so yeah, I mean, I think there's probably a lot of courses of action over the COPA stuff,
Hmm.
or if any other U.S. laws have been violated. Um, I also don't, but I'm also a little skeptical of it of this whole thing. I mean, I guess it is good data that they're getting, but also it's quite beneficial to some companies, some American companies with lots of political ties to ban TikTok because TikTok is a good competitor to them now. So TikTok is a great competitor to Facebook and Twitter,
Yeah,
right? Or I should say to Meta and Twitter because it's
yeah.
also a competitor to Instagram
Instagram.
and right.
Yeah.
So in fact, TikTok is probably the first new social network in a while to come along, relatively new social network to come along and uh, challenge the big
Yeah.
players,
Yeah.
Facebook, Twitter, and
Since Snapchat, though, that was a
right,
bump. But I mean,
right,
they still exist. But they only challenged the big players until the big players stole their features wholesale.
right. So here you have a place that they've managed to accomplish something,
Yeah.
and no U.S. company owns them,
Right.
right? Amazon, Amazon has Twitch. Twitch is another big source of eyeballs, but Amazon has that.
Yeah.
So, who are the independent companies that are not one of these major mega corporations that are not owned by Google or Amazon or Meta or Elon Musk uh, that are sort of competing for the eyeballs, and here's one. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
and it's run out of a country that a lot of people like to trash, that we have some conflicts with. So I feel like I'm just very skeptical because there's a lot of companies that benefit from banning TikTok. There's a lot of
True.
competitors that benefit from banning it,
Yeah.
and they have every interest in in trying to find problems with it so that they can eliminate a competitor from the market.
Yeah. I'm totally a valid point. There's little guys out in the wings. Um, Interestingly, there's other platforms that are similar. I don't know how it's pronounced. Is it Likee, Likee, which is essentially TikTok, but that one I think might be Russian. I don't know.
Oh, even better. Oh, even better. Our relationship even better. I
Yeah.
mean,
And somehow we don't ever hear anything about there being a problem with Likey or like. I wouldn't have any idea how to pronounce that one.
I mean, I thought that. I mean, there were definitely at the beginning of the Ukraine war. There was a lot of talk about people dropping Kaspersky antivirus
Yeah,
because
there was.
Kaspersky antivirus is based out of Russia. And I'm not sure if people are still dropping Kaspersky antivirus, but that was definitely a concern, right? So
Singapore.
these
They've got a lot of Russian users, but Singapore is where Likey is based.
Oh, okay. So that's probably why it's okay. But it's really hard to get people, as you and I have discussed so many times, it's really hard to get people to move from one platform to another, even if they're feature equivalent, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
for sure.
a lot of
People
people
are
are really unhappy.
people are already on Facebook and Instagram, and yet the reels that show up on there, which is just TikTok, are just people reposting their TikTok videos.
Well, that's what that is. Oh, that's what that is. Okay. So that's probably why it's okay. But it's really hard to get people, as you and I have discussed so many times, it's really hard to get people to move from one platform to another, even if they're feature equivalent, right? I mean, a lot of people That's what that reel thing is.
Yeah, it's just
It's very
TikTok.
annoying, and it just shows up all the time, and I don't know how to make it stop.
Yeah,
Anyway,
Facebook and Instagram Reels are just TikTok. It's Facebook, it's Meta duplicating TikTok. And YouTube has a feature called Shorts, which is just YouTube's TikTok.
right. Oh, so you don't mean it's literally TikTok? You
No,
mean
no, no.
it's a ripoff of TikTok?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes, yes. Yeah, right. So there's YouTube Shorts and they're the Reels, and yet somehow it hasn't, put TikTok out of business, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, a lot of people were unhappy with all the crazy stuff going on at Twitter, right? And yet somehow they still have it all left for Mastodon, even though, even though there's Mastodon. So, although I have to say, I set up an account at Mastodon and I rarely check it. I think the fact that the federated thing, while seems cool, it's sort of made it like, oh, do I go to this Mastodon site or that Mastodon site? And it hasn't been kind of what I was, hoping for. But yeah,
I kind of want a Mastodon server for us, and I also don't care that much. It's a weird middle ground that I've found myself in.
yeah. I mean, it would be nice if there was, like, I think what the world is crying out for is an open source or open or distributed, however you want to call it, platform.
Yeah, I
Right.
agree.
I think that's what the world's calling out for. There's two, and that's what the internet was built on. If the internet was built today, there would be no email and there would be no HTTP or HTTPS, whatever. There'd be no email and there'd be no web
Yeah.
because those things are open standards. And
Yeah.
all the businesses that have taken over the internet hate open standards.
Yes.
In
Yes,
fact,
they do.
when the internet started, some businesses hated open standards too, but they couldn't stop it. They tried. Like AOL hated, and the internet was the destruction of AOL. AOL wanted you to use the AOL keyword thing. They didn't want you to go to a website. They had the world's worst web browser to try and punish you for trying to use the internet, right? Like, they didn't
it was
want
so
you
bad.
to do it. It was on purpose. I know it. So I used to tell people at the time. So, like, the company, the distributed nature of open standards on the internet are things that individual businesses don't like because it doesn't give them an exclusive advantage, an exclusive access to data, and exclusive features, and lock-in, and all the things that businesses like. But when you talk about something that's really important, like social networks, like having a distributed source of information, it would probably be better to not have it be centralized like this. Now, you would ultimately have some interesting questions about how it's moderated, if at all. But you know what? The corporate nature of some of these communities is a problem, and you're seeing it with TikTok, but you're seeing it everywhere else.
Yeah.
None of these other platforms is exactly wonderful with your data or wonderful with misinformation either.
Cambridge Analytica. Oh, sorry.
Right? They all have something going on, so you can't. Nobody's hands are clean.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know that this is going to go anywhere, but it's definitely interesting that time seems to be cyclical right now, and somehow we have ended up back at the beginning of the story, and there's no telling where it will go next. Hello, YouTube. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of F5 Live Refreshing Technology. If you did, please subscribe to the channel down below, and of course hit the notification bell because we know that subscriptions don't mean much on YouTube anymore. If you've got topics that you'd like us to talk about in the future, please comment them down below. And if you'd like to not follow us on YouTube, there's lots of ways that you can follow along with our content by going to plughitslive.com/subscribe. There you'll see all of our shows and all of the ways that you can watch, listen, and follow along.